Hey, Console Room friends and family, I'm Miss Shannan Paul, and welcome to the 2021 virtual edition of Console Room. I'm really sorry that we are not meeting in person, but I'm glad that we have found a way to at least maintain our community, although it looks in a completely different way. So, welcome to my home office, and welcome to a special edition of Comedy Through the Chaos, which is a streaming comedy variety show that I launched in the middle of a pandemic. What we do with Comedy Through the Chaos is that we help talk about difficult subjects through the use of humor and laughter. And I'm helped out by some very funny and talented friends that come along to help talk about the way that they have learned to process things through the use of humor. And this is a very special edition that we did on FOMO. Yes, the fear of missing out. And we specifically talked about how all of us geeks are missing all of our conventions, like this one right here. I'm very proud to have some very amazing performers involved in this event, and some of your Console Room favorites that are included in this episode along with me. You also see the very funny comedian Will Spottedbear, shout out, he is my heart. Also the incredibly talented storyteller Reverend Kessen, who we all know and love. He's in this as well. And then we get a yoga lesson and some really good advice from our favorite mental health practitioner and yogi, Justine Mastin. On top of that, I also want to let you know a little behind the scene tips. My supervising producer, Console Room favorite, Taylor Cisco, T. Aaron, shout out for helping us put this episode together. Again, thank you for joining us for the virtual edition of Console Room, and thank you for joining me for this episode of Comedy Through the Chaos. Hi everybody, welcome to Miss Shannan's Comedy Through the Chaos. I'm Miss Shannan. This episode, we're going to talk about the fear of missing out, or FOMO. Hey, the FOMO is real, and the anxiety that people feel when they think they're missing out on something can lead to other issues like sleeping problems, fatigue, stress, and psychosomatic symptoms. I know, you're thinking, there's nothing to do, so what is there to miss out on? But that's just it. We're missing out on everything. Graduations, weddings, summer movie releases, cons. Everything we'd normally be doing at this time of the year has been postponed or canceled, or in some cases both. Speaking for myself, this pandemic thing has been especially hard for geeks. Normally we do okay alone. A lot of what we worry about is collecting and consuming content, binging the latest sci-fi and fantasy series, collecting our comics or books and action figures, heading out to the latest MCU installment. Now, some of you may be surprised to hear this, but I have a whole closet of cosplay like this. And I know you're like, well, who would normally have a bunch of costumes? I'm that girl. You know, have you seen that person that goes to cons all the time? Yeah, my friends that are here right now are raising their hand. Yes, thank you very much. I deserve a round of applause for this. This wig is hot. But that's the whole thing, is that it makes you do unrealistic things in real life situations. Because the other thing is, all my favorite TV shows are all those true crime shows we get to watch. Right? So it's all the Criminal Minds and the Forensic Files. Ooh, and Snapped. Have you guys seen Snapped? Some of you have seen it. Snapped is great. Snapped is all about women who become murderers. Normally for something relatively minor. Tina went to work one day and somebody took her parking space. And the whole building got poisoned, right? When we get to go back to work, you should be nice to your coworkers, right? That kind of thing. But here's the thing, like, I came home from work and I had accidentally left my front door open, right? You know, most people would have guessed that. But all I could think is, a serial killer has snuck into my home. And I'm not a good American with a gun collection, but I do have a sword collection. That's why I perform at cons, because otherwise when I'm performing in the suburbs, they're like, why would she have a sword collection? Zombie apocalypse, right? You know? You run out of gun, you don't run out of sword. That's just good planning, you know? Karen can stay here and get eaten. That's okay. So I snuck into my house, grabbed a sword, then went through it, clearing it like I'm a ninja. You know, and I think I'm very smart. So I'm looking under the bed and looking in the closet. You know, I even looked in the shower because it never occurred to me that this serial killer had seen the same Jackie Chan movies that I had. No. And of course, there was nobody in the house. But I was surprisingly disappointed by that fact, you know. That's a lot of adrenaline to dump. You're expecting a Kill Bill style showdown. No, it's just me on a Friday night going, this is exactly why you don't have company. No wonder nobody visits anymore, right? Well, we do appreciate all of you who are visiting us tonight on this episode. So what I've done is I've invited some of my very funny friends that I've performed with at some of my favorite cons. So they are here to perform for you, to share with you, and to prove that we are all in this together. But first, my friend, the Bitter Baker. Now, she never likes to miss an invitation to a party, so she'll probably bring the snacks. Here's Tiffany Norton.
Hello and welcome back to the Bitter Baker. As you can see, I'm dressed a little differently than normal. I thought it'd be fun to dress up like Maleficent, and also I just thought that this outfit made my tits look good. So that's why I bought it. I got called out for wearing this costume on Halloween earlier this year by a friend of mine. She's like, do you even really remember the story of Maleficent and Sleeping Beauty? And admittedly, I didn't. The reason why Maleficent orders basically the death of a 16-year-old girl is because she wasn't invited to her christening. That's some serious FOMO. All right, so I'm excited to begin our Sleeping Beauty Bake, which I'm calling the Big Prick Poke Cake. I don't know who the hell I'm gonna send this to. To begin our recipe, we're gonna take 1 box of white cake mix and we're gonna divide it between 3 6-inch pans that we've already greased and floured. We're gonna bake it on 350 for about 30 minutes and we're gonna cool those. And then we're gonna get into why it's called a poke cake. What we're gonna take is 1 box of gelatin, 1 Jello, purple Jello, grape Jello. I think purple is a flavor, right? And we're gonna add 1 cup of hot boiling water. When our cakes are cooled, we're gonna poke them with a fork. We're gonna do a lot of insertion in this. And then we're gonna take our Jello, our hot Jello mixture that we've whisked together, and we're gonna put it over the top of all 3 cakes, just a little bit. And now, after our cakes have cooled for 3 hours, we can pull them out of the refrigerator and we can start assembling our cake. We're gonna do layer, buttercream, layer, buttercream, layer, buttercream, layer, buttercream, layer, buttercream, layer, buttercream, right? And we're gonna use, obviously, our purple frosting we've already prepared. We're gonna put that buttercream between each layer, smooth it out. We're gonna try to make our structure as much like a big, strong castle as possible. Now, I've considered cursing people many times in my life, but that's a little severe. I mean, that's pretty Karen of her to want the death of someone because she wasn't invited to a social gathering. I would love to give a curse, but I think what I would have cursed little Princess Aurora with would have been something more along the lines of limp hair and combination skin. That's still a nightmare. No Sleeping Beauty bake would be complete without a spinning wheel for her to prick her finger on. And you don't need much. You need a cup of sugar, granulated, 1/3 cup of corn syrup, 1/2 cup water, and 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. Once it cools down to 275, you can add your food coloring and you can start to do your sugar work on your parchment paper that has already been sprayed with some kind of nonstick cooking spray. Put your spinning wheels in the freezer or refrigerator for a few minutes. Sugar work is very delicate and very sensitive to temperature, so you do want to work with things that are chilled, much like your buttercream frosting. And on the top, we're going to add some rosettes because, of course, they have thorns and they can prick you, and some dark chocolate Hershey's Kisses that I've unwrapped and added to the top. And we're going to garnish with our sugar work and our little bit of cocoa powder that's been sifted. Check it out, we're done. That is the recipe. Thank you so much for tuning into The Bitter Baker. And please tune in next time to The Bitter Baker when we make Wake Up and Smell the Coffee cake.
For more Bitter Baker videos, you can like and subscribe to her YouTube channel. Just search for The Bitter Baker, and you can also find her on Facebook. And Dallas.
What's she doing up there?
I don't know. I told her, I was very clear, she's not in this episode, right? You were kind of clear. We're all right. Nope. Not, bye. Bye. This is going to be a long day. Okay. All right. So, our next performer is the creator of Reverend Matt's Monster Science, a comedy lecture series that has appeared at conventions, libraries, museums, and theaters all over, and which you can watch every Thursday at 8 p.m. Central. So now he joins us on Comedy Through the Chaos, Mr. Matthew Kessen.
Hello. I'm Reverend Matt, and on February 3rd, 2013, my old college friend Ted Spas, who is still one of my top men on the West Coast, posted the following on my Facebook wall. I just awoke from a dream that you had written a book called Ecology of the Video Game Dinosaur. I didn't get to read much of it, but I assumed there was a chapter on how nightmarish it is that Yoshi can unhinge his jaw enough to swallow creatures the same size as his own body, and they then disappear as though they never existed. Which clearly means there's a portal to another dimension somewhere in Yoshi's bowels. Yoshi is not the dinosaur. Yoshi is just the part of the dinosaur our mortal minds can perceive. And that part is the mouth. Anyway, good morning. So today's talk is in fact excerpts from my book, Ecology of the Video Game Dinosaur, which I wrote in the implicit backstory of a friend of mine's dream. Chapter 1, Yoshi. Now, I have little to add to Mr. Spaz's scholarship, which is, of course, sterling. It must be mentioned, though, that not only does Yoshi consume items his own size, but also expels them abruptly and without seeming harm. I speak, of course, of the eggs. This indicates that the Yoshi we perceive is not only the mouth of the pan-dimensional hyper-Yoshi, but also its cloaca. Perhaps this entity has just a single orifice used for eating, birth, breathing, expelling waste, sweat. Maybe it dispenses various beverages. You don't know. In fact, your limited, fragile human brain is physically incapable of knowing. And that single orifice looks like an adorable green dinosaur. And it projects this orifice into the prime material plane in order to feed, deposit its young, and render assistance to a plumber who is extremely good at jumping. There is, in fact, a whole species of Yoshis in the video games. They are clearly multiple projections of the same entity into our reality. Perhaps multiple orifices. Such is his power. Indeed, we are left to wonder why it is that Yoshi holds back, why he doesn't simply eradicate Bowser from existence, perhaps retroactively. Perhaps he is testing Mario. Perhaps he has some longer game. It is not for us to question Yoshi, however. His intellect spans universes of time and space, and we cannot begin to guess at its glorious machinations. This is the conclusion I have reached based originally on his eating things that are too big. Now, I'm not saying that we should worship Yoshi. Not yet. But Yoshi is not from either of the two finest dinosaur video games, with no particular order in between the two. Each is too beautiful, too glorious, too perfect to relinquish the top spot. It would be like choosing between your own two children, except neither one is taller, so you can't. The first of these is Rampage, a game in which you play a human who has been mutated into a giant monster, and your objective is to destroy the city by climbing up buildings and punching them repeatedly. You can also punch cop cars. And you may do this as one of three monsters. George is a giant ape and an obvious callback to King Kong, the character that made the entire giant city-attacking monster genre possible, who then went on to die for our sins. In the backstory of the game, George was a human scientist mutated into a giant gorilla by experimental vitamins. In later games in the series, this would be retconned into mutation in a lab explosion, and then into mutation via drinking scum soda, which I guess seems poorly marketed, but I don't want to tell video game cola salesmen how to do their jobs. These origins are important to gameplay at such times as never. Lizzie is, of course, a giant dinosaur, a Godzilla-type creature, though unlike most city-wrecking reptiles, she is only 3 or 4 stories tall and must climb buildings in order to destroy them. Indeed, the monsters in Rampage occupy a gray area, a liminal space, if you will, and if you won't, get your head right. Between Kong and Godzilla. They climb buildings like the ape, and they destroy buildings like the dinosaur. It is possible that you have never given this sort of thought to Rampage, but that is all right. There is still time to turn your life around. The third monster is Ralph, who rounds out the iconic giant monster trio of Kong and Godzilla with a Wolfman. Now, it may sound as though that makes little sense, and the reason for that is that it doesn't. It completely doesn't make any sense at all. Not for a second. Seemingly, they were able to think of 2 iconic giant monsters and were simply unable to come up with a third. And that is why I started my series, Reverend Matt's Monster Science, so no child would ever have to go to bed again only being able to name 2 giant monsters. Nevertheless, Rampage won the Nobel Prize for Video Games, which I invented and bestowed upon it in a small private ritual. Chapter 756, Primal Rage. That's primal rage, by the way, not sophisticated rage or urbane rage. Primal Rage was a game that was released in 1994 by Atari Games of the 2-dimensional one-on-one fighting variety, like the old Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. Indeed, the character roster of the game itself was something of a satire of Mortal Kombat, though perhaps homage would be a better word than satire. Mortal Kombat is sort of beyond satire. Satire exists to take something and make it absurd, and in Mortal Kombat, the word combat is already spelled with a K, and there's an ice ninja. Primal Rage told the ages-old story of dinosaurs and yetis fighting each other, and a planned sequel was proposed, which was also going to be about dinosaurs and yetis fighting each other. Well, obviously a story this profound and compelling could not go untold, so they instead gave us this. Primal Rage, The Avatars by John Vornholt. A novel. Literature. It's pretty much garden variety drivel, of course, but it is notable for one thing. I got this copy of it a few years ago at a local used bookstore for the sum of $2.99. If you would like a copy of it, there is, of course, the online secondary market, which I checked the other day. $299.99 used, $99.97 used. The first one should have been new. And that's to start. That's on the low end. And copies of this book are presumably a little thin on the ground at this point, but there were fully 15 sellers on Amazon alone. And more to the point, apart from supply, there is also an economic concept called demand. And I love Primal Rage, and many fine people also love Primal Rage, but I am sadly persuaded that we do not live in a world in which people are really going to pay top dollar for a terribly written used paperback about a dinosaur video game from 1994. So how does this work? Well, I am a man of science, but there are some things that science does not explain. Thank you.
As always, it's very educational hanging out with Reverend Matt. Now, our next performer not only is one of my favorite people to hang out with at a con, but he's also a friend that I've talked to about anxiety issues with before. So we are going to take a break and talk to my friend, Will Spottedbear. Hey, this is the first time we've come here and not spent at least 20 hours. Because don't you think? Like, that's all right. Yeah, I mean, we always like at least a day. What are you doing?
Natural.
Why are you doing?
I'm just being natural, man.
Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that?
Just trying to be natural.
No, really. Why were you just doing that weird thing with your leg?
I was trying to make my
I've known you for years.
stomach not be fat.
You need to stop. Gotta think.
Like, I
like your tummy.
There's only so many ways I can move it, though. It's
I
only,
kinda, I mean, I missed your tummy, and it's so weird to be back here at the Hot Comics because this is one of the places you and I used to hang out when hanging out at places was a thing. So it's nice that hanging out someplace is a thing again.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy to see your tummy.
Well, thank you. During the
Thanks for bringing
pandemic, it looks exactly the same from when it started. And that took a lot of work.
True, because most of us were like gaining weight during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So the fact that you managed to maintain, that's impressive.
I look like I've done nothing, which is kind of my sweet spot.
I think I like that. It's so weird. One of the last places you and I were supposed to hang out and do a show was actually at this Hot Comics here in New Hope, and that was, I think it's a really good example of how you know you shouldn't go to a place, but you still feel that missing, that pit in your stomach where you're missing out on something.
It's uncomfortable because I'm really happy to be here, but also like a little nervous because it just started to open back up. So it's like I'm like I always wanted to be G.I. Joe, but now I'm kind of being a little more Cobra.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You know, because I mean, we were also talking about how some of the other places you and I normally go, like the cons where there's lots of people around. And I think in general, even before we were dealing with everything with the novel coronavirus, it was a place that kind of was a happy, sad feeling because it was really, I don't know how your anxiety felt when we were around that, but it's a lot of people and new people and feeling your anxiety kind of amp up every time we went someplace like that.
And everyone's like a little nervous, like not crazy, but they're all worried about it the same way anyone's worried about things. And then like, once you leave, it's just like it's like being in hot water.
Right, exactly, like a lobster in a pot. You're right. That once the longer you're there, maybe you don't notice and you just get accustomed to it. Right. Because the anxiety rises so quickly. Yeah. But I mean, I think that's also something that you and I both kind of dealt with is like, you know, I've talked to you about when I've had like my little, you know, anxiety-ridden moments and how you find that space in your head that you can go, okay, what are my techniques for calming down? And how you finally hit that point in your life where you're going, I really need to figure out how to control this so that I can function, and it's not always easy. Yeah, or trying to figure out like if I miss something, that it's not the actual end of the world, right? Because like I get worried about like if this thing doesn't happen the way I think it should, that means cataclysmic problems, and most of the time it doesn't, and even if it does, I think you can change it anyway. Right, because it does feel that though. I agree with you that you're in the middle of it. Like if you go, if I cancel on this, am I ever going to get another opportunity? What are they going to think about me? Am I ruining somebody else's mood? Instead of going, but me going is actually bad for me for multiple reasons. Like even if it's just, I don't want to go, you know, and still feeling like, am I going to be vilified by not attending this dinner party or something like that? What if they get really good cake this time? And like, it's like my favorite, and like if it's not my favorite, but I still want, it's... How sad would I be if I missed all of the really good cake? Yeah, and normally it's not even that great. Like it's okay. Like everything's okay. Right. Like, That's just a good mantra for life. Normally it's not that big of a deal. But it just feels like it at the time. Right. And normally when it's a big deal, they let you know because they don't bring it up. Oh, right. Or, so are you saying that if we spend all of our time comparing ourselves to our friends on social media, that probably was manufactured and we really didn't miss much? Yeah, a little bit. It's interesting talking to your friends who, like I had a friend who was like on social media, looked like they were killing it. Right. And then I did what you would call the bare minimum amount of research or knowledge of what they did. And I'm like, oh, this is fake. Right. Like it's like a photo. Like Facebook is the worst, what's the word? Not introduction. But like the most like superficial version of you. Fair enough. You know what I mean? So like when you see someone having the most fun, just from people I know like that, they aren't. Right. And the people that aren't doing anything are probably having a good time because they're not bringing it up. True. They're too busy. Right. You know what shows having a good time is? Not having selfies. That makes sense. That makes sense. So I'm glad we're here. I need some more pop figures. They're over there. What are you going to look at? Action figures myself, maybe some comic books. All right. Air high five. Meet you back here. Okay. Thank you so much, Will. He's one of the funniest comedians in the Twin Cities. You can see him on Amazon Prime, and he goes where no ordinary rabbit would dare. It's William Spottedbear.
How's it going, everybody? That was a Bucky O'Hare reference. To give a little point of how meta I am, in the last 2 months, I have found out that there are 80s cartoons that are on for free on YouTube. One is Bucky O'Hare, which has the greatest theme song that explains everything about the show that lasted for about 12 episodes. Also, another fun fact, this has nothing to do with anything, they have all the old 80s G.I. Joe on YouTube. And if you watch it, I imagine it's what conservatives feel like fighting liberals, because one side is all bare-chested and the other one's all wearing face masks. I'm a pretty nerdy dude. I hid it for a long time, right? I grew up in inner city Pittsburgh, where being different wasn't looked at with kindness, right? And so I figured if I try to hide out, I could get away with it. And here's the rub. You can't. People that are going to bully you anyway. You might as well be as weird as you're going to be. Or as normal as you're going to be, right? Like I'm wearing a polo shirt. Now that's pretty normal, and that took me 37 years to get there emotionally. And also because it's just a trick, right? Like when I was 17, I realized this: when a guy comes up to me, a tough-looking guy who didn't like me because I was breathing in and out. And he comes up to me and he goes, "What are you looking at?" Me trying to avoid confrontation. I said, "Nothing." And he says, "So now I'm nothing?" Well, that's just a trick question. We're just going to stab each other. I don't have time for your silly games. It is a thing I do. I am a bit nerdy. I feel bad. A lot of people dressed up in beautiful cosplay. Miss Shannan looks fantastic in Stone. I kind of look like Steven Seagal at a Best Buy. Never really done cosplay. I don't have the discipline. I can look like an Aquaman that's like letting himself go, or a Hagrid that's on the right track. Like that's. I am a big comic nerd. It is difficult because I've started to be open about it. I love nerdy stuff. I've been enjoying comics since I was a kid. It is interesting because I have a lot of nieces and nephews. I grew up multi-ethnic, so no one in my family looks the same. So my nieces on one side are all a bunch of redheads. On the other side are native, mixed blood with black, right? So I look like nobody. So whenever I take them to the movies, I get arrested, and that's fine. They're like, "What are you doing with them?" I'm like, a lot of people made a lot of weird decisions in the 80s, and that's why they have me as an uncle. Now, the difficult is that it's tough trying to find representation in geek culture, right? Like, because I grew up in inner city Pittsburgh, I didn't know about Native culture. The biggest way I learned about Native culture until I was old enough to find it was through media, right? And like comic books were my first intro to that. And like most people that are minorities in the 90s, I don't think it was a good intro.
Right.
Even currently, right? Like we had Black Panther, and that movie was dope. But the same year they had Justice League, who had Cyborg, who was literally 3/5 a human. Yeah, it was tough, right? My nephew's like, "I kind of like Cyborg." You really shouldn't, buddy. You shouldn't. Don't. Wonder Woman did that with natives too. There's only 2 Native Americans currently in DC, or there's 3. 2 are in DC, 1 is in Marvel, 1 was in the X-Men, Days of Future Past, who was Warpath. You would notice him because he wore war paint in 2030. He did not talk, he only screamed and got killed because the future X-Men were an all-minority cast that the white people had to make unhappen for some reason. This is the darkest timeline. There's someone that's Puerto Rican and Asian. We need to get Hugh Jackman here. Look. Then there were 2. 1 was Slipknot on Suicide Squad. We only know 2 things about him. 2 things. 1, he can track anybody. The second is he punches women. Those are the only 2 things he did in the movie, and then his head popped off. That was it. Now, I'll tell you this one, because this one's where I watched Wonder Woman. If you haven't seen it, it's the best they got.
there's a native guy in there. Now, apparently he speaks the actor's actual language, and in the story he says that he's not actually a human being, but a demigod, a trickster god of Native American lore. That's a deep Easter egg. Even I didn't know that because I don't know all native languages. But anyway, I watched it with my two sisters, both the redhead kind, right? Now, there is two scenes that the Native American actor shines. One is at the end where he throws a tomahawk with dynamite on it, which was dope. And if they only did that, I would have been very happy. I would have let it slide. But what they did first, there's a scene where Wonder Woman and Chris Pine and his pretty ass eyes drive off. And they go, we need to get a signal to them. And the native man goes, I know how to make a signal. And I got excited. Because I'm like, this dude's about to wreck some shit, like Billy off of Predator, the only cool one we got, and God bless him. Now, what he does is he does a smoke signal. People under 30, what a smoke signal is a racist stereotype we got rid of when we got rid of Tom and Jerry smoking. What happened, besides my face getting full of rage, my older sister, who doesn't miss a beat, goes, hey, Will, what's he saying? Best damn joke she's ever said in her life. The best example for minorities in comics is X-Men, though they do kind of have a rougher thing. You know, anything that tries to be liberal 10 years from later is going to seem a little stereotypical, right? Like in the X-Men, they had the first like rainbow coalition of characters, but all their powers are still kind of like a little insensitive if you think about it. You know, like Jubilee is Asian American. She can shoot fireworks. That's a little messed up, right? Mm-hmm. Sunfire is Japanese. He has atomic flame, and that seems real too soon. Shadowcat is a Jewish girl that can run through walls and hides. And that's like, ugh, that's awkward. I didn't do it. Don't look at me. Now, there are a couple Native American characters in there. One, the best one, Forge. He could build anything. He had a mustache and a ponytail. It was real subtle about the native thing. Now, once in a while, they put him in a tunic. What are you going to do? But then there's three more. There's Thunderbird. He was an angry Native American. The way he died was he punched a plane to death. We've all been there. And the third is Moonstar, who is a young Cheyenne Lakota native. She had magical bow and arrow that could cause illusions, which isn't great, right? But the best one of the X-Men, of the native ones, there's a character on an ad hoc committee of X-Men called Shannan Friedlander. She was part of the Muir Island X-Men. Now, she was not a mutant. There was a story where a bad guy turned her and another man into Native Americans because of comic books. They were two white people, and a character called Demon Bear made them Native Americans. And then they got to join the X-Men. They weren't mutants. Like, the only thing, if you actually look her up, they'll put on her things like she got no powers, except she's a little stronger because she's native. It's 2020. So in the land where, like, people can shoot lasers out of their eyes and just have claws, someone's like, hey, you're native, right? You should probably join along. Listen, come talk to the colors of the wind. Sounds messed up. Moonstar could talk to the werewolf, Wolfsbane. It's not as an age well. Anywho, I am a big comic nerd. I have a spouse who had to find this out the hard way. I got engaged a year back. I was really excited about it. Now, I found out, because I didn't grow up with like any marriage stuff like that. My family wasn't really into that stuff. She was, so I got her an engagement ring because I know rings are important. And she goes, well, you don't have to wear an engagement ring. And I said, yeah, I guess I don't, which was not the right answer. I found out. I looked it up. I tried to be nice. I said, okay, I Googled it, and according to GQ magazine, the Rolex watch is the male equivalent to an engagement ring. Yeah, it's not happening, right, ladies? No, not at all, right? Oh, my God. She got real mad at me. I'm like, I didn't write this. But I tried to make a concession. I didn't want to wear a wedding ring early on because, again, I know that like totems are important. That one seems to be universal. So what I did, I decided to get a power ring. Like, because like I love Green Lantern. I love Green Lantern. I know every Green Lantern of Sector 2810. I don't know if you can hear that over the sounds of all the panties dropping, but I can do it. Now, if you don't know, there's other power rings. If you know Green Lantern, his is green, but it represents willpower. There's a red one that represents rage. There's a yellow one that represents fear. And the one I wear is blue, which represents hope. Because I hoped to get married. Yeah, it's 50-50, right? This really divides the house. Because one house is in like 321. Oh, that is in that sweet boulevard. Like, that is so cute. And then the rest of the people are at my girl's house, which is 123. Are you flipping kidding me right now, Lane? Because she did not find it cute. She was like, you know what? That isn't an engagement. That doesn't prove monogamy. It's a superhero ring. I said, sweetheart, it's a superhero ring. I think it's just going to kind of help with the monogamy. You know what I'm saying? Like, really? Come on, what? I was talking. My favorite character is Captain America. That is my favorite dude. I love him. A lot of my friends, they are not fans of Captain America. They're more fans of Batman, right? My friend's like, no, Batman is a much better superhero than Captain America. And I'm like, my friend, you deserve to die with the college debt you've accumulated. Because Batman is just a hero for the 1%. Yeah, feel the tension? Here's the thing. I've done this joke across the country to both 5s and 10s of people. And every time I say that we can't be Batman, everyone tightens up. Because for some reason in this society, we all get taught that we could be Batman. And we can't. And it has nothing to do with the money, has nothing to do with the gadgets. What it has to do with is that everyone in this building and everyone watching right now has had something bad happen to them. And they got to handle it like not a flippin' psycho.
Right.
Because what is Batman's story, right? He's a poor kid, poor rich kid. He had one bad thing happen to him. Okay, 2 bad things happened to him, right? And now he just gets to punch people forever. That sounds insane to me, right? Captain America is a poor inner city kid. He joined the military to fight tyranny, right? But because he took a performance-enhancing drug one time, we discredit him, right? Captain America has 2 enemies. Nazis. And more Nazis. That's all he fights. Well, Batman has what? Batman has an environmentalist and a clown that doesn't like money. Like, Gotham City is the best example of trickle-down economics, right? Also, the thing is, what I love is that people think Batman's so cool. Batman obviously, like, they obviously know he is that guy. He's getting that preferential treatment. They're like, no, he's just such a good detective. He's so good at mysteries. They couldn't figure out it's Bruce Wayne. If Gotham City didn't know how scary Batman was, or like who Batman was, how much more terrifying of a story is that for his sidekick, Dick Grayson Robin? Right? If you don't know the story, Robin, like a little kid wears underwear, and we kind of let that go the whole time. But the actual origin story of Dick Grayson is that he was a kid with his parents. He was in a traveling circus. His parents died in a sabotage murder accident. Bruce Wayne was in the audience, and he decided to take the kid home. Now, in the story, we all know that that's Batman taking Robin to train to avenge his parents. But if Gotham City is not aware of that, it's just the richest guy going, hey, I'm going to take this limber kid with no family. He's going to go to my cave. In 6 weeks, there's definitely going to be bruises. Look. The best case scenario for this child is he is in his underwear fighting monsters. The worst case is Gotham City has assigned him to be in his underwear fighting one particular monster. That's it. That's the thing, man, because I like Captain America. That's my dude. You know what Captain America will do? Captain America will kill his enemies like a gentleman. Batman doesn't kill. Batman will never kill, but Batman will jump off a building onto the back of a 16-year-old drug dealer who didn't have any other options because Wayne Enterprises wasn't hiring that month. It's like, oh my God, how can we stop the Joker? Maybe comprehensive mental health care. For a giant city, every villain has like a bunch of henchmen. There is a major employment opportunity in Gotham City for henchmen. And do you know why? Because the villains in Gotham City provide a living wage. Two-Face offers dental. Twice. Do you know what Captain America has? We'll just go with movies. Do you know what the movie Captain America has over any other Batman movie? Captain America has black friends. He has 4 black friends in the movies. He's from the 1930s. Do you know how cool you had to be to get that open-minded that fast? Really? He doesn't even call them his black friends. We all know somebody on Facebook today that can't do either of those things. There are 3 black people in, well, no, there's 2. There's only 2. Well, there's a third one. He doesn't get a word. He gets hit by a bell. And the first one in Tim Burton, he dies. That's 1. The second is Billy D. Williams. He was in the Tim Burton movies. He played Harvey Dent, who would later become Two-Face. And when he did, neither of those faces were that of the smoothest talking black man in existence, but of white-ass, over-manic Tommy Lee Jones. No. And the last one is Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman was in all 3 of the Christopher Nolan series. And if you watch all 3 of those movies, Bruce Wayne does not make eye contact with him, not once. Fun fact, I watched it with my girl because she got mad at this joke. I said, you know, it's also funny. Anytime he needs to do extortion for Wayne Enterprises, he has Morgan Freeman do it. And he says on 2 occasions, someone like you knows how to get it done. Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. It gets realer. I was thinking about Batman, right? He holds off to that stuff, right? Like, there's 1,000 stories of what happened to the Cape Crusader. We care about what happens to Batman when he's done. There's not one story about that about Captain America because we stop paying attention to the soldier once he comes home. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm sure you're laughing in the virtual world because these are so lighthearted. But it's a shame because you know Batman uses his white privilege. Because why else would he have the hole cut out in his mask? He's loved by law enforcement. There's one who's like, oh my God, look at that big black scary monster. No, wait, look at his lips. I think this is the thing we're working on right now. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you so much to Will Spottedbear. Thank you again also to Reverend Matt for the... Nope. Thank you to all of our performers this evening. Okay, I want to remind you that FOMO is definitely a real thing, and many of us still struggle with it. And to help us identify and squash some of that missing out anxiety, I made an appointment with licensed therapist from Bluebox Counseling, Justine Mastin. Okay, so Justine, you're one of my most multi-talented friends because not only are you a fantastic therapist and counselor for a lot of the people in our geek community, you're also an actual yogi. I very much enjoy your yoga quest things that you do. So basically you take people on a story, you know, through a story, and they usually are nerd related, which is good because I wanted to talk to you about FOMO. Because we were talking with another good friend of ours about how so much of what we're missing, like we would be at a convergence or a geek convention, and I miss all of that stuff. So this seems like a good time to figure out some ways to be more mindful and quiet all of that anxiety that we have. So I thought this would be a good place for us to have this conversation.
Yeah, I love it.
I will tell you from experience, I normally am bad at yoga. So I'm glad to be here with you and see if it gets better.
What I'm reacting to is I don't believe in being bad at yoga because yoga's for you.
Okay, all right. I'm going to try. So what are we starting with?
We want to find some grounding and some balance.
Okay.
So let's do a tree pose.
Okay.
Yeah, come on up. All right.
Okay.
So we're gonna start in a mountain pose. Feet a comfortable distance apart, whatever that means for you. Arms at your sides, shoulders nice and broad. I like to think of this as the come at me, bro pose.
Gotcha, okay.
Like if somebody's coming at you, you're like, yeah,
yes.
come at me.
All right.
Come at me. And you can stay here. This is also a great spot for grounding. If you want to, kind of test that balance a little bit more, we're gonna shift weight into our left foot
Okay.
and turn our right knee outwards.
Gotcha.
So foot can hang out on the mat. Great spot to be. Or if you want to keep testing your balance, foot can keep coming up further and further up your leg.
Okay.
Just avoid your knee joint. Your knee will thank you.
Ah, gotcha.
Or, some people like hands to heart or arms up high, pretending to be an actual tree.
There we go.
Whatever feels best to you. It's a great spot to be grounding down through the foot that is planted, lifting up through the top of your head. You are both grounded and balanced.
Wonderful.
And switch sides. We don't want to be uneven.
Okay. I feel like most of my life I feel uneven though. Like, is that a common thing where you just feel like whatever I'm doing, we talk about being able to find balance in your life, but I very rarely feel balanced.
In your body or in your mind? Or both?
In my mind.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Yeah, that's fair. There is a lot happening in our world that pulls our attention.
Right.
So even when you're trying to do this, like even when you're feeling really grounded, really balanced, something else can pull your attention, like there are cars going by.
Right.
Or I might think, what am I doing later?
Yes.
What's happening after this?
I do so many vacations all the time in my head. Right.
Brain vacations.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Here, let's just come back to mountain pose for a sec. And here's the thing, you can do this anytime.
Okay.
And what I mean by this is you can come back to the center again. And for me, the center is your breath. That's something you can always focus on. It's always with you. If it's not with you, like, you need help.
Okay, right.
Emergency medicine.
Right.
But otherwise, your breath is with you and you can focus on it. It's like your internal mountain pose.
Right.
You can come back to it anytime. So if you find that your brain went on a mental vacation, just notice, hey, my brain went on a mental vacation. Isn't that interesting?
Right.
I'm not going to shame myself for it.
Right.
I'm not going to, make myself feel bad for going on the mental vacay.
Right.
I'm just going to notice that I went there, and then I'm going to come back to my breath, to my internal mountain pose. And then I get to choose.
Right.
Do I want to be thinking about the place where I just was in my mind? Or do I want to be present right here in this moment? Because lots of times our mind, when we don't like where we're at,
Fair enough.
right? We're bored at work.
Yeah.
I'd much rather be on Game of Thrones in my mind.
Yeah. So I'm over there. I'm like, there's dragons. I would rather think about dragons. You're right. I agree.
That sounds so much better.
I know a lot of us, when we are when we are least quiet in our minds, it's at night, or when we're getting ready for bed and we're lying there. So, are you can we practice learning how to be quiet in our mind when we're like laying down? Because that's when I absolutely am not quiet.
Let's do it. Yeah, so let's come down to the ground.
Okay.
And we're just gonna turn around. And let's just stretch for a sec.
Okay.
Legs out in front, arms up high, and fold upper body forward. Oh, starting to cool the body down, cooling the mind down. If you notice that your mind starts to wander, again, that's fine. It can go on a little vacay.
Okay.
Or we can notice it and come on back.
Okay.
But the point is, the choice is yours. You get to decide. And then we're going to make our way onto our backs. I like to keep my knees bent because that's just more comfortable for me. But some folks like to have legs out long. You are now in the well-known pose, Shavasana, in yoga.
So am I supposed to be doing anything while I do this?
You're doing it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you're doing it. For lots of folks, Shavasana is the hardest pose because it does feel like you're not doing anything.
Right.
Right? And it gives the opportunity for your mind to wander. And so this is an opportunity for you to do that internal mountain pose, to pay attention to your breath. There's nowhere else I need to be, and there's nothing else I need to be doing.
Okay.
So as those thoughts come in that say, you know, I have a project due. Thank you, thought, for stopping by. Feel free to continue on your journey. You can also take this opportunity to check in with your body and do a little body scan. Like, how do my feet feel? Do they feel tense or relaxed? If they feel tense, can I welcome some relaxation into them? And you can do that all the way up your body. And you might be surprised at what is tense. Especially the space in between our eyebrows. We tend to, furrow our brows even when we're just laying here, being totally relaxed. And you can stay in Shavasana for as long as you want, or as little as you want.
I like it. Well, I think that you do a fantastic job of reminding people that it's okay to take those vacations, and that it doesn't mean that you're bad at what you're doing. It just means that your brain is doing what brains do.
Yeah, this is what brains do.
That works. And I think we're pretty safe. I wanted to check that no dragons were coming to get us. I figured we'd be all right.
We're good.
We're good. Thanks, Justine.
Yeah, the nerd in me honors the nerd in you. Nerd must stay.
Nerd must stay. Okay, folks, thanks again for joining us for this special edition of Comedy Through the Chaos. We have more episodes coming to you very soon. You can always follow us on social media by going to Facebook or YouTube. Just go to Comedy Through the Chaos, and you can find me. Just look for my website. It's MissShannan.com. That's Shannon with an A. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your con, and virtual hugs, everybody. We miss you.